like their guy who knows this shit, but he
Yeah.
doesn't. He's just someone who he intellectually he studied it, he's enthusiastic about it, but he is not he's still different from these people. And you can tell that, like, you know, when asked, he goes like, what do you guys want to fuck around in that river for? And he
Yeah.
is like, he's annoyed about the question, and his answer is so revealing. He's like, because it's there,
Yeah.
because it's a plaything for me as
There's
a
no
guy who,
reason. It is
yeah,
aimless. It's and honestly, what it really is to just prove that you're a man. It's got that prove to you're a man thing. It's like
yeah,
we're from the big city and we have to at least be able to survive like the cavemen did. You know, it's that whole like natural living the wilderness kind of living it within the wilderness kind of thing. And honestly, it is kind of scary when you see these things because you realize they're not doing the type of camping that most people do nowadays. You know, you get a lot, you're you're locked in. There's a convenience store a little bit of ways. Like they're doing that. They're deep in the wilderness. If they mess anything up, if they lose their food, if they lose their canoe, if anything happens, they are stranded. They're doing the real stuff. So when you start to hear all this stuff, you're just like, there's so much danger involved in this.
yeah.
And you're doing it with this like pseudo wilderness man.
Well, yeah, and that's just
In
it. Is like
Gucci.
you're like as soon as you start picking up on the fact that like their guide is just as much of an outsider as like
Yeah.
John Voight's like Ed is, who is the more overt sort of like worrywart of the group. Obviously, he's the one who's, you know, he's cracking a smile at Lewis's bullshit, but then going right back to being anxious about snakes or wishing they could just pack up and go golfing. And you know, the whole group knows that he's doing this macho performance, and he's closer to being one of them than he is like a mountain man.
Right. Yeah.
But and I this is a point actually that I guess I'll plug it here. I rewatched this a few years ago because Tarantino's book came out, Cinema Speculation. He had a whole chapter about how his mom took him to a double feature of this and and The Wild Bunch. Speaking of Peckinpah again,
Hmm.
when he was like 11 or 12 or
Oh, hell
something.
yeah.
And it's a I would
Oh my
recommend
God.
people get the book. If you know, it's a good book in general. He has some crazy opinions in it I disagree with, but it's fun to
Yeah.
read, and it's fun to read especially someone who just has the uh the same issue we have, where all we want to do is just watch movies and have an encyclopedic knowledge
Yeah,
of all of these
definitely.
fucking grotesque movies. But hearing him describe the fact that he watched the rape scene in this movie, and like before he knew what the idea of rape was, and like he didn't even know what
Oh,
was happening, he was like, that was just like, I knew they were like bullying him or humiliating him,
yeah.
and that's like all I needed to really know. But the point he raised in his book is that what Burt Reynolds is doing in this movie, and he's doing it to a movie star degree, is he's posing, and that
Hmm.
everyone kind of knows
Yep.
it, and they play along with it because it's fun, because
Yeah.
Reynolds wants to
I,
believe it, and these guys want to have an enjoyable weekend. So
yeah.
everyone
And
just kind of goes, let him do it. Like,
yeah.
and
And I think there's also like a comfort in that too, where it's like, even if we don't necessarily truly believe that he's like the super survival man that we need on this trip, we need somebody to take on the role so we can all feel comfortable out here in the wilderness where anything could fucking kill you. You know? And
yeah,
I think there's something there too, where they're almost lying to themselves so that they feel comfortable next to bears. And
yeah,
I love
and
to
the river fucking shit that they're about to do, because the
right.
actual
Yeah.
location work and photography and the pure scale and beauty of what it is that Borman and Zygmunt shoot here when they actually do hit that fucking river, like
Mhm.
they shoot this American backwoods wilderness like it is beautiful, but like it is primitive and like it is
Yes.
lawless. Like I feel like I watch, especially when we get into some of the dreamier stuff in the second half. But there's some stuff where he shoots it almost like it is like a science fiction or a fantasy thing. And obviously it's grounded in like the reality of the real textures.
Mhm.
But it's one of those things where he makes it feel so big, and these characters are
Yeah.
discovering something so large. But then obviously they are overwhelmed by it and dominated by it
Yeah.
and violated by it in very explicit ways, which we'll talk about. But like the early goings, it's like they love the dudes rock like fun of it. It's the actors are being tasked with literally splitting into pairs, getting into these fucking canoes with their paddles and hitting these rough river conditions with rapids, with real stress apparent on their faces, and comparing their experiences to the sensation of like the first explorers, while also drinking beer and camping out and catching fish with their
Yeah.
their fish dinner with a bow and an arrow, while letting Lewis say shit like, man, you don't beat this river, or
That was
yeah,
what I was gonna say.
that's such a fucking sick line. But also the someday machines are gonna fail. It's like your buddy at work.
Yeah,
It's like
he's
someday the system's gonna fail, man, and the only
it's
people who are gonna survive are the ones with the ability to play the game.
yeah, exactly. Talk, talking to that guy at 2 a.m. when you're baked or drunk, that's awesome. But at the office, that's not fun. But yeah, he's definitely that guy. It's very funny. I wrote down the same thing when he said, "You don't beat this river," because what I like about the context of it is that they have like a really triumphant moment. Honestly, they go through these rough patches of the water and everything goes smoothly. And for half of them, they've never done this before, so they feel like they've accomplished something. And so for them to kind of feel like confident with each other, they've kind of done something for the first time all together as a crew. So that will create like a morale. And then him to be like, we beat that, and him to undermine him and go, you don't beat the river, just to establish his like the alpha in the group. You know what I mean? And then I also like the line where he's like, I think Ed says like, I like my life, Lewis, and he's just like, yeah, but why do you go on these trips with me? And to
That's
be
a
honest,
really, yeah.
and I love that, because I think Ed definitely has a little bit of it where he's like, I like this part of it. I like feeling like I'm out in the wilderness, lost and kind of a man at the disposal of nature and whatever else. But I do think that he understands that he's just, this is a pure fantasy with the boys for a weekend, whereas Lewis is like, no, we're living.